Welcome to Vote Home, the podcast series that wants you to have a choice on 9th of June 2024. My name is Narcis Matache, and together with Zoe Nicot, we'll be hosting the lead candidates and young candidates from hopefully every political party in Denmark standing for the European Parliament elections. Over the next 60 minutes, you will get to know the guest, its political standing, its relationship with the international community in Denmark, its view for the future of the Union, its European identity, its knowledge of the Union, and stay tuned until the end because in the last segment we also have a fun challenge for the guest. And our guest today is Nicklas Verne from the Conservative People's Party in Denmark. Welcome, Nicklas. Thank you so much for joining us in the podcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Nicklas, you are a young candidate on the Conservative list. How old are you right now?
It's actually my birthday today, so now I'm 24 years old.
Happy birthday, mates. Nicklas,
Thank
24.
you.
Are you the youngest candidate on the Conservative list?
No, unfortunately not. Maria Pusch is 1 year younger, so we are two young people on the list.
That's fantastic. Were you supported by the youth wing of the party, or it's just it didn't matter? You got your own spot regardless of being supported by the youth wing or not?
Yeah, Maria Pusch is the official youth candidate for these European elections. However, I'm put forward by the Western Jutland area, and I'm the main candidate for that area of Denmark. So it's very exciting.
You're a candidate for Western Jutland. That's great. I guess you must be very well versed in farming and agriculture.
Yes, a little bit. I've certainly gotten a bit smarter on it recently.
So tell us, Nicklas, what is your background and why did you decide to go into European politics? I mean, I know you are coming from European youth and we have that in common, but is there something more that pushed you into the whole European politics thing?
Yes, thank you. So it all started actually when I started gymnasium high school, where we were going on a study trip to Brussels. And before this, I wasn't very interested in politics. I remember I thought, yeah, that's whatever. People can vote what they want. I don't really care. But then I went to Brussels and we went up to an office of Ben Benson, who was the Conservative MEP at the time. And I remember going up this huge elevator. It felt like 80 floors perhaps. And then we walked out and he was sitting in this chair and he turned around slowly and bid us welcome. And I remember from that exact moment, I thought, that's where I want to be one day. And then I went back to Denmark and I joined the Young Conservatives. And then shortly after, I got into Conservative Students and then eventually European Youth. But what actually really lit a fire under my desire to become a member of European Parliament was that I became the Deputy Secretary General of the European Democrat Students, which is the official student wing for the EPP group in the European Parliament. And since then, I asked if I could run, and they said, yeah, perhaps you can. And then they put me forward, and now they went on full support in Western Jutland, and it's just fantastic. So that's why I'm running. It's really exciting.
That's great. So you basically are a bona fide politician. You basically grew up to be a member of the European Parliament, you could say, more or less. But why conservative, by the way, Nicklas? I know you are very pro-European. I would even dare say maybe federalist young person. How come you chose a conservative party? I would have seen you maybe more in a more, I don't know, liberal direction.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I've always felt conservative, really. So there are many elements to this, but one of them is that in my family, of course, we have always voted conservative. My grandfather was in the executive board of the Conservative People's Party, and my father was also a local chairman of the Young Conservatives one time. And so we've always talked about the Conservative People's Party, but we never really brought it up and they never pushed me to have an opinion. But it felt very natural, and especially because there was a local youth association on my high school, which was from the Conservative Youth, so it felt very natural. And then, secondly, it was probably also because the study trip to Brussels was with a Conservative MEP. And so it all just clicked together, and I thought, okay, well, I already feel that they are, let's say, relatively on point with my agenda, and so let's see what it will bring. And then also the Conservative People's Party was this middle-seeking, pro-European party, which I really like, but also not afraid to say when we feel that the European Union goes a bit too far in some legislation. So it felt very natural to me, and I'm really happy that this is where I ended.
Okay, so would you call yourself still a federalist? Because I'm not sure about that one now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't. But I'll call myself a pro-European skeptic. I'm very pro-European.
Okay, got it. No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, you can always talk about that behind closed doors.
Yeah, no, but actually, there's a funny moment. I was at the European Youth General Assembly, the meeting, yearly meeting, annual meeting, and there they asked me. I was stopping as the political secretary. They asked me, "Are you a federalist?" And they're all waiting waiting for my answer. And I say, "Unfortunately, not." And they, "Oh, no! How could we have had this political secretary? He's not even a federalist." And
to be honest, Nicklas, you are not the first political spokesperson for the European Youth who is not a federalist. I think very few of them were. I remember during my time of activism in there, I was almost among the very few people who were there. But let's go now to, if you get elected, do you have any concrete projects that you plan to fight for?
Yes. So we were at a meeting in Cyprus when I was in this European Democrat students. And I remember we were at this meeting and we were preparing to start, but our Ukrainian friend was a bit late. Her name is Irina. And she comes in late and we can see she's pretty upset and she's surrounded by her friends. And then eventually she's held up to the podium, and around her neck she was put a Ukrainian flag. And then she could tell us that one of her best friends had been killed in Ukraine, actually, due to a Russian missile attack, I believe it was. And that's when I realized personally that this is one of, if not the most important task for the European Union in the upcoming years, is to defend Ukraine and their democracy. Because they are fighting every day for this right that we are exercising right now, for example, in our podcast. And so that is one of my most important things, is to ensure the continued support to Ukraine, and also that we have new initiatives to hopefully bring Ukraine into the European Union as soon as possible. So that's my most important, I'd say.
Okay, but those are more like lines of ideology that you're willing to defend, but have you thought about a certain project? Because let's say that you get elected just like Kira got elected as a very young candidate. Is there something specific that you could do? It doesn't have to be so big as defending Ukraine from Russia, which is a very noble thing, but something smaller, something that you can relate to. Is there like a project you could go for?
Yes. So I've always been very fond of the green agenda. I know this sounds very typical to say now because a lot of candidates now are all in on the green agenda, but I have two concrete initiatives actually.
Okay.
I think that it's time to have a CO2 tax on mostly all businesses in the European Union, but it has to be joint. It has to be made by the European Union, not individually by each national state. And then also, we have to also make sure that we get this CBAM directive, which they're working on, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which will be a CO2 tax for people trying to get into the European market. So, for example, when China wants to export their goods to the European Union, well, they'll have to actually pay this tax in order to trade with Europeans. And that's very important. That's probably one of the most important things in order to actually make a global impact on the climate crisis. And then also another thing on this is about the current support that farmers are getting from the European Union. 1/3 of the European budget comes from this support. And right now there are no criteria. There are absolutely no criteria except how much space you're taking as a farm. But it's actually so crazy right now that this thing called bonbonland in Denmark, it's a place where you can take a family and ride. I can't remember the English word for it right now. Amusement park, that's the word. It's an amusement park who are also getting this support, which are meant to be allocated for the farmers. And so I think it would be really strong to have a look at it and say simply, if you're producing in a green manner, you're able to receive this support. But if you are producing without climate initiative things, you'll not be able to get it. I think it's very fair. You can save a lot of money, reinvest it in the green agenda, and also you'll support farmers this way to give them initiatives to green transition.
Nicklas, are you ready for farmers coming to your house and throwing?
Yes,
because such a proposal, you have to understand it will raise some anger in at least some of them, some of the farmers. You're trying to find a middle way, but you're still pissing off some people.
Yes. But I will say though, I've been at quite a few debates by now, and there's a lot of farmers who are thinking, okay, well at least he's not trying to tax us nationally. So they understand that it's a bad. Because I also actually, my personal opinion is that I think it's a bad idea to put a CO2 tax in Denmark on farmers. I think it should be done on European level. I can't see the argument that we should be the front movers on this agenda, because if we want to make an impact, it has to be on a European level anyway. And so when I propose this, I say that this economical support should be rewarded to those who are willing to use the green alternatives. A lot of farmers will be like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. That's no problem. That's the minimal thing they're going to do, they tell me. But you're right, it does create a lot of frustration at some farmers. But so far I've only received good comments.
That's great to hear, Nicklas. And I think it's quite impressive for a conservative candidate to come and say, let's not have a national tax, but let's have a European tax. I like where that goes. As a federalist, it's just it's very close to my heart. So thank you for that.
Of course, no problem.
Nicklas, this podcast, is targeting internationals living in Denmark. So why should they actually register to vote for an EP candidate from Denmark? Because they're allowed already to vote for an EP candidate from their home states. So why should they give up on that and instead choose to vote for someone from Denmark?
That's an interesting question, because I'd say usually, of course, you'd want to vote on someone who's in your own country. But I also think that if you're living in Denmark, you also have the opportunity to influence the politicians in the country. And of course, if you are living under politicians who are doing legislation in the area you're living, which is, let's say, Denmark, I think it's rightfully so that you should vote on a Danish candidate. It's difficult to say which candidate they should vote on, of course.
That's their option.
But the option is there, and I think that's important, actually.
That's great. Thank you for that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. We're trying to get more people to be aware that they actually can vote for a candidate from Denmark, and I think they should get used to vote in Denmark, both for local, regional, and now European elections, because we live here and we should be able to talk to people who represent these parts of Europe in the parliament, regardless because when you go to the parliament, it will not matter if you're Danish or Swedish or Romanian and whatnot. It will matter that you're liberal, social democrat, or conservative.
Exactly.
That's the only ideological divide that you have in the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you have any international friends, or because one of the big things that every time international says that they cannot make Danish friends. Do you have yourself international friends or acquaintances, or
yes,
do you have any connection with this voting group?
Yeah, I do. In Denmark, it's more. I don't have so many international friends living in Denmark, but I have a lot of international friends in other European countries. But I will say that European youth has really helped me to find international friends. You yourself, Narcis, have been a chairman in Northern Jutland and had a great organization there. So it's so important that we are able to meet internationals in these associations. And I think that's wonderful. I can't really remember right now if I know any internationals in Denmark, living in Denmark. I don't think so, actually, except from European youth people.
But in the Conservative youth or Conservative Party, have you ever noticed any internationals, by the way?
So that's one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, is that in the in the Conservative Youth Party, we don't see many internationals joining. We only see Danish young people joining, and that's fine. And we have international guests from all sorts of countries, but it would be fantastic to have some internationals in the Young Conservatives. Also because, the EPP group is the biggest in the European Parliament, so it's not like there isn't any conservatives out there. It's just that the organization is not good enough to get these internationals to join. And so I think that would be great, actually.
Fantastic, Nicklas. So if you were to get elected, would you feel like your door will be open for internationals, basically, who have something to say regarding EU legislation and whatnot?
Certainly. I think everyone, but especially when, as a member of the European Parliament, everyone living in Denmark has the right to have an opinion and to project this opinion. So I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited also to get into the last 14 days of the elections, because I hear that's when all the people will be on the streets ready and people will start to realize, oh, there are actually elections coming up. Most people right now, they don't even know there's a European election. I was at a debate earlier today, and people are like, "What's there's a European election?" And yeah, here you go. Here's a flyer.
Okay.
So it's quite exciting.
Yeah. Well, Nicklas, are you planning to yourself have some campaign in English or targeting internationals?
Unfortunately not. I believe it will be in Danish, but I have met some people I don't remember where I was. I was in Ringkøbing. In Western Jutland. I was in Ringkøbing, Western Jutland, and we were doing some leafletting, and there were people coming by from the Netherlands, I believe, and said, we can't vote here. I said, yes, you can. Have you lived in Denmark for over 2 years, I believe? It is right, 2 years or something like this?
No. You if as an EU citizen, you can vote from day one.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I know. I just said if you've lived here for 2 years, but now I know from day one.
And the only thing that is different compared to local and regional, where yes, it's also from day one, by the way. For local and regional, only if you're not a European is 3 years. But if you want to vote for European Parliament, you have to still, if you haven't voted before in Denmark ever, you have to sign up to be able to vote in Denmark, so that in a way it lets know the system that at home in Netherlands they cannot vote anymore, because you cannot vote in both places, obviously. So it's still not automatic, and it's only automatic if they have voted in Denmark before, maybe for the local elections or something.
Okay.
So that keep that in mind, that if you meet them, say you can vote, doesn't matter how long you've been in Denmark, but you make sure that you go to Borger Service and sign up. Otherwise, It doesn't work.
Okay, that's great to know. By the way, thank you. I'll do that.
Let's do a round of yes and no questions.
Yeah.
So you ready?
Yep.
Should Denmark exit the EU?
No.
Should cannabis be legalized?
No.
Should EU countries stop selling arms to Israel?
That's a tough question. I would say it's difficult to have an opinion on this, because currently I don't think it's acceptable what is happening in Gaza, but
okay,
I guess
just put no. Yeah, no answer.
Yeah, no answer if I can.
Yeah. Should one be able to take the plane to travel from Aarhus to Copenhagen, for example? Should it be allowed to fly inside Denmark?
Yes, but I also think we should have better transport with trains. That would be good.
Should farmers pay a tax on their CO2 emissions? I already heard that one from you, of course, but...
Yes, on a European level, but not necessarily on a national level.
Okay. Do you think there's too many members of the European Parliament? Should we reduce their number?
No, I don't think so. I think right now we have a interesting way of distributing the members of Parliament. Some would argue that the French and the Germans have too many seats, but I'm not so sure. I know it's a yes and no round, but no, I'd say no.
Okay. Do you think we should use Google products or any other like big American corporation products due to their security and privacy issues, or should we ban TikTok if we go that way?
I think we should use the Google and American products, but we can also we can set some boundaries and say we're only going to use it if you actually have proper security for our information, public information. In regards to TikTok, I don't think we should ban it. I think we should look at how it's operating right now and maybe do some legislation on the area.
Next question is, are you a secret federalist, a closet federalist?
Well, my colleagues in the Young Conservative would say so, but no, I wouldn't say so. I'm very positive about the European project. Yeah. I think it's one of the most beautiful ways to meet people, but but no, probably
Do
not.
you have the poster of Altiero Spinelli hanging above your head in your room?
No. There's actually only a lamp here.
So no Altiero Spinelli, nothing in there. Okay.
No.
Thank you so much, Nicklas. That was the round of yes and no questions. And now we're going to move to part 2.
Thank you.
The union. First question is, if you remember when of course you don't remember, if you ever heard when Robert Schuman said in a famous declaration from 1950s, that's why I said you definitely did not hear it live, Europe will not be made all at once or according to a single plan. It will be built through concrete achievements which first create a de facto solidarity. Could you reflect on the foundations of the European Union and its foundational ideas and aims? How are they reflected today, and where do you see us evolving in the future? Because, is it a finished project? Are we midway? Should we progress more?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because right now I think it's also very important to discuss which way the European Union is headed and should be headed. And so, in my opinion, I think it's important that we use the European Union as this body to make legislation on all the areas that we can't do alone on a national level. And what I mean by that is, let's say migration crisis. It's very important we are cooperating on this agenda. The climate crisis, we cannot do it alone. It's impossible. And also, in some degree, financial policies are also now becoming a European agenda. I remember before I said that we should have a CO2 tax on European level, and I'm for that. But not necessarily for taxing companies on a European level. I think that's still, right now anyway, a national responsibility. But I also do think that it's important that we keep collaborating in the European Union to solve these issues that we can't solve alone. But let me give you one example, actually, because this is one of my important policies and thoughts. And so the maternity leave directive has been discussed a lot in many debates. And I can't understand this, because I always believe that the individual family should have as much freedom in order to decide how they want to live their life as possible. And so when, for example, right now we are making a maternity leave directive saying that you have to split the maternity leave at least this amount of weeks on a European level, right, and it's a directive, then we are removing the ability for the individual family to decide themselves. Plus, there was a study showing that when you have this, there's actually less all over maternity leave for the family, because they are just choosing not to take as much. And so I think this is one of the areas where the European Union has gone a bit too far. I think we should focus on other important things that we can solve together. But things like this, they are more suited on a national level, I'd say.
When I was thinking about this question, to be honest, I was thinking, it's good you went with an example, but I was thinking of a structural way, right? Because there is this continuous debate easy with the federation. Is it not? Where is it going? Is it finished? Should we preserve it the way it is now? Where are you in this one? Should we make small steps forward? Where should we make? Because if you say on the social side we shouldn't make more steps forward, should we make steps forward on anything else then? Like what?
Yes. So I think we should keep expanding the economical side of the European Union to other nations, let's say. And so I think I was visiting North Macedonia a few years ago, and we went to their parliament, and they have their issues nationally. It is what it is. But we went to their parliament. They were, there was many European flags. They feel European, but they're not members of the European Union. But I think what we could do was essentially expand the way that we trade with each other to these countries. For example, North Macedonia, Albania, and Ukraine, of course, Moldova.
So you want the expansion of EU basically to happen more, faster? I
believe it would be healthy for democracy and for the European Union as a whole if we had more members, yes. But I think that it also has to come at a time when they are living up to the Copenhagen criteria, when they can show that they are living up to the democratic goals that we have set for them. But I think the European Union can expand this regard, but I'm not so sure how much it should expand on the social area, to be honest. I think that's up to see how we handle that in the future.
Okay. For example, you would see a common European pension system, right? Because now there's so many people who live in multiple states over their life. And it's a mess after they're retiring with the whole pension system. Don't you think it'll be a good idea to unite the pension systems of all the EU and be administered on a European level?
It's a very, very interesting way to think about it. And I agree in the sense that I think we should harmonize it enough so that there are no issues when you're transitioning. But I don't think it's possible, or it is possible, I don't think it should happen to essentially make one pension system, because we are right now, for example, paying different tax in each country. And so I'm not so sure, to be honest. Let's say the tax money has gone to Germany, for example, and you want to have your pension, but you go to Denmark. Now, who's funding this pension? If the Germans are funding it, sure, no problem. I think we can make legislation and rules to harmonize it in order to make it as easy as possible for the individual citizens. But I don't think we should have one pension system. I can't see that.
I'm more thinking about maybe, because the several countries will be in the situation of not being able to pay pensions in the next decade, including Denmark. So I'm thinking that anyway, possibly pensions in the future will have to be refought and found a different source of funding for them. So if we were to create some sort of a taxation system for EU level, then we could use that taxation system, for example, to finance pension system everywhere. So no matter where you retire in Europe, you should kind of have a similar level of pension. So at least let's say that we were not able to give Europeans equal opportunities during their life in the last 60 years, but then at least when they retire, they have a chance to live the same, more or less. Is that too much of a outlandish idea?
No, it's not outlandish at all. I think it's a very interesting concept. I actually, to be honest, I haven't heard about this before, but it sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
However, I would probably have to research it a bit more and find out exactly what that would mean. Because a European tax for pensions, I'm not so sure I'd support that, to be honest, but I would support having it as easy as possible for the European citizens to go on a pension in whatever country they're ending up in. And in regards to the pension crisis, I guess we can call it, I think we can have discussions on a European level on how to solve it, but leave it up to the individual national state so that they can use their own ways of sorting it.
Okay, because this idea actually came from the current government, right? They want to use this tax on planes. Well, it's inspired. I didn't say it's the same.
Yes.
They want to use this tax that on tickets, right, on flying in Denmark, within Denmark and outside of Denmark, to use it to finance an increase in pensions in Denmark, right? So they're using CO2 taxes, and then you mentioned a European CO2 tax on agriculture.
Yeah.
So then you could use those money for pension.
Well, I think, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but I think those money which are being taxed for flying, they have been completely put out the wrong way. So the whole point of the CO2 tax is that you can take this money and you reinvest them in green initiatives in order to help on the green transition. But what they've done is they've taken this money and they've given it to the elderly people. But, it comes out as 1,000 crowns per pensionist. You can literally go to maybe your local Rema, your local Netto, and maybe buy groceries 2 times, and you've used that money by today's prices, right? If you're buying big for the week. And I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I think the government has completely failed on their project for this. I think it's time to have a serious change in the pension system to give the elderly people their respectful pensions. But also, when you're taxing for CO2, you need to reinvest those money. That's just my opinion. I think the government will also pay a bit in the polls for that mistake. We'll have to see for the upcoming elections.
That should be definitely very interesting. Now you were talking in the beginning that your main line is that you want Ukraine to be fully supported and protected against Russian invasion. Now you also see in USA the potential re-election of Trump, which is fairly said very dangerous. What should we do in the EU in terms of security and defense? Is it maybe time for that to bring our armies to actually function together? It's maybe time that we properly develop a European defense industry. What are your thoughts on that? You come from a party which is very pro-military, right? So
Yeah.
what about European level? Are you guys also pro-military on a European level?
No, we're not. But there's a reason for that. Because I think we all see the immediate danger if Donald Trump is re-elected. I mean, if you'd asked me maybe 3 months ago, I'd say I wasn't so concerned. But then I was recently also watching some of these clips that he's said and the things he's saying, and it almost sounds as if he gets the presidentials, but he's going to pull the US out of NATO, regardless of if the European Union the NATO members are paying 2% of their GDP for NATO. And so that's very dangerous. I think that in the worst case scenario, if the US does decide to leave NATO, I think NATO as a union will still exist. I think it's one of our most important allies, as well as the US, of course. And I think looking at it, when the headquarters of NATO is in Brussels, when a lot of these bases are scattered around Europe, I think that's solid. I don't believe personally we should have a European army. I think the European Union can say to their members that it would be beneficial if they were spending more money on their defense budget. I think in Denmark we have a plan to reach the 2%, which will take many years. If we were in government, I'd promise you that would be fixed very quickly. And I also believe Denmark is actually counting in their support for Ukraine economically in the budget for NATO. And so right now, Denmark is on paper living up to the 2% GDP on defense, but in reality, we're not spending that. And I think that's a problem, to be honest. I think all European Union members should be spending the 2% of their GDP on their defense budget in order to live up to the NATO criteria. But I also, and sorry, to return to your question, actually, this is also important. Right now, we are discussing whether to have more centralized when we're coordination of buying military material.
Correct.
And I think that's wonderful. I think it would be a good idea to have the same rifles, let's say, the same ammunitions for these rifles on a European level, because it would be easier. When we are allies, it would be very good. So we don't have, I think it's Stine Bosse, who's been on the podcast as well, would say that there are over 100 different weapon systems in Europe, and we need to centralize that a bit. She says that in all debates, by the way, that's why I know it. And and yeah, I agree with her, to be honest. I think that's important.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicklas, for the answer so far in the part to the union. We're going to end the part to union with a quiz time. Let's see how well do you know the European Union project.
Okay.
So, the very first question. Once upon a time, there was a lot of young people on the streets of Europe. It was 1979, and they were chanting, they were like marching on the streets in Rome, in Paris, in Berlin. They were asking for something. They were actually from the European youth, they were members of European youth around Europe. So, what do you think they were fighting for, and what did they manage to obtain that year, in 1979?
1979. They were... Oh, let's see how well I know my history here, but is that around the Maastricht Treaty, I believe, or something like this? No, it's not? Okay, well, they were probably fighting for a more developed European Union and more I haven't forgot the word. Solidary European Union. But
they were fighting for the direct elections for European Parliament. You know, before 1979, countries were just nominating who should be in the European Parliament.
Oh,
yes,
that's right.
So in 1979, it was 800,000 young people on the streets asking for this to happen, and they managed to get it to happen. And it was actually organized by our organization, Young European Federalists. That's why I put you that question, to be honest.
Oh my god, that's fantastic.
I want to see if people are still talking about this in the organization.
They are actually. I just remember now. We at the annual meeting, they actually put a quiz up, and they asked about this. What happened in 1979? But I forgot. But yeah, that's right. And now I made a fool of myself because there was Think 3Ds in 1992
much further
or something,
afterwards.
right? Yeah.
Let's go to the next question. One easier one. How many stars on the European flag? And why are that number? Yeah.
There are 12, and I used to believe that it was because there was 12 founding fathers, and they each represented a member state.
No.
But I found out that's not the case. But I don't remember exactly why.
It's basically that the 12 stars form perfect circle, and it symbolizes the unity of the people of Europe. It's just it's in the European mythology. It's a symbol of perfection and wholeness. We are together now, so it comes from that. You can say it literally means unity. the round circle. Last question is.
Very good. That's very good.
In how many countries is voting compulsory for the European Parliament elections? Sorry, not countries, EU states. It's a better way.
Compulsory. Yeah. Well, we can use both of them. Compulsory. Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing actually in the countries.
No.
I imagine that in Germany and France, definitely.
I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if it was Germany and France.
Well, zero countries. Then probably.
5 countries we are having voting compulsory.
Maybe I was. So just to, because my English skills can sometimes be a bit rough. It means that by law,
otherwise they get the fine.
They have to vote, right?
Yes.
Okay. Really? Oh my god! I imagine it. That's why I thought it was France and Germany, to be honest, because I thought they are like the main runners of the European.
It's actually Belgium,
but maybe
Belgium.
I'm guessing
Luxembourg,
zero.
Of course.
Belgium, really?
Bulgaria. Yeah, and then you have Greece and Cyprus. Actually, in Greece, if you don't vote, they don't allow you to get a passport. Means you're not doing your citizen duties, you know.
Well, that's quite crazy. So let's say that I'm living in Greece. Yes. I'm from Greece, and I want to vote, but I feel like there are no good candidates. I have absolutely no interest in politics whatsoever, and I feel
vote blank.
It might be better for me to just not vote. Should I then go? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And so they're required by law. It's interesting, really. And do they have this for the national elections as well, or only for the European elections?
But I know for sure it's for European Parliament elections. I had to research this one, but I didn't go into to see if it's also national elections. But it could be, right? I mean, why would they do it for EP and not for nationals, right?
Yeah.
It'd be strange.
Yeah. It's just maybe they, or maybe they just think that
politics
is so important.
Yeah, I'll be fantastically surprised by Greece, especially. Let's just say. Let's move on to part 3, the citizen. And we start this part with the first question. Do you think people in Denmark are aware of their EU citizenship? And what about you? When did you realize that you have one? When did you realize you're an EU citizen?
Yes. I'd say that in general, most people in Denmark are aware that they have this European citizenship. They probably don't know exactly what it means. They understand that when they're traveling, they can like show their passport and they can get in quite easily. And even like when they're going across borders, they don't really have to show their passport even sometimes. And so that's good. I remember in primary school, and I only remember this a little bit, but we were having this one class and we were being taught about the European Union, and we talked about the European Union and its unity actually, which was quite interesting. And then we talked about how you have this European citizenship along with your passport because you're a member of the European Union. And I think that actually put a little imprint on me. I remember that was also what ignited my international spark anyway. At the time, I was actually traveling a lot to Bulgaria. I was going once per summer for 3 years to Bulgaria because my father was working there. And that's when I really got the flame for the international spirit. I thought it was wonderful to learn how to speak English with these Bulgarians. And I remember they were helping me actually. We were at this resort, and there was this guy named Chris. I remember to this day, he was a very passionate guy, and he was part of the animation team helping the young kids. And he'd sit there and he'd teach me English. And back when I was not so good, I'm still not that good, but a little better, I thought that it was shall. So I would say, shall we go to the pool? And he said, should we go to the pool? He told me, okay. And then I remembered that. So I have fond memories of international. I think it's one of the best parts of the European Union, the unity, especially.
So that's basically when you realized that you're a EU citizen. It's interesting what effect can have on you what you learn in school, these EU classes, and basically your own experiences with your family and your own traveling.
Exactly.
Do you think that let's say that a state leaves EU, right? By whatever, like UK, for example, but people were born as EU citizens. They lived as EU citizens for decades. Do you think it's fair to remove their EU citizenship from them?
That's a really good question. I'd have to think about that one, but I think that no, actually, it's quite simple. Because if the national country has decided that they want to leave, then they are also backed by the population. And so the population has to know that if they leave the European Union, well, they'll lose this European citizenship. And so even though it will be terrible for the people who voted to stay and they feel themselves as European, they will have to abide by the national law. And I think that's, to be honest, a bit fair. But then they'll have to also campaign against it, certainly. But I also think at the current state, I can't imagine any country leaving the European Union, maybe except in Hungary. Could be some issues there. If they had a poll, I'm pretty sure Hungary would probably leave. But
they don't dare.
It's difficult to say.
To do that.
They won't dare.
They don't dare. Even Orban knows that he dies without the public support from EU.
Exactly.
It's very simple in there, but to be honest, it's I think it's a lot more complex. For my mind, it's a lot more complex because I feel like citizenship and EU identity have started to kind of come together for a while now, and that's why a lot of people in UK today feel very alienated themselves. They're trying to move to Europe just because they feel like if they left EU, if in UK they're not feeling like at home anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And plus it was like 51 to 49. I mean, such situation, don't you agree that such referendums should have at least 75% on one side? Because they're so radical that it's too close. 51 to 49 is so dangerously close. Like half of the population is alienated right now.
Exactly. I completely agree. Perhaps it should have been 2/3 or, like you're saying, 3/4 in order to leave. Because I think just a simple majority is ridiculous, especially the way they ran that campaign, right? In the Brexit campaign, there was so much misinformation. There were so many people feeling that when they leave the European Union, then they'll get their power back to fix the state and all that. But in reality, it just turned out to be a complete disaster. And many people, actually till this day, a lot of people are having to go to get food in these pickup areas. My campaign leader for the European election, actually, he's from Wales. He told me about this. There are thousands of people that can't afford food, and they have to go and pick up the food by these
food banks.
Food banks, because they left the European Union.
Your campaign leader is from Wales, so you have an international friend.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course I have an international friend. He's actually one of my best friends, so he's really, really good. But he's not living in Denmark. That's the thing. He's living in Wales, and he travels.
Okay, so he volunteered for your campaign, basically.
Exactly, and he's fantastic. He's traveling from Wales all the way to Copenhagen to stay there for a bit. Then he comes to Western Jutland, and he'll stay here for the last 14 days of the campaign. He'll be there every single day in order to do the thing with me.
Well, then that means you have an international who is ready to help you with getting some international votes. Remember, if you're targeting Ringkøbing area, you have a lot of Romanians and Polish there. Like a lot. We're talking about thousands. So keep it in mind. Maybe that's something for you.
Exactly.
Let's move on.
I have one.
Yeah.
Can I have say one more thing? Is because you also mentioned about there was a lot of people leaving Britain in order to go to Europe. You're completely right. Actually, I have a perfect example of this. One of my good friends, his name is Jan. He's an elder guy, and he lived in the UK. And once they left with Brexit, he decided that he didn't feel represented anymore. So he actually moved. He took his business, he took his his things he owned, and moved to Denmark. And now he's living in Denmark and Hobro, actually. He's originally from Denmark, but he was living in the UK and had planned to stay there for many more years. But he was sort of forced to go because he didn't want to stay there anymore. So you're completely right. It's actually a thing that people are moving to Europe from the UK.
It is. I mean, we have a very vibrant British community in Denmark, actually. And a lot of them actually moved in early stage right after the vote. Like 2016, there was a huge increase in number of British people coming to Denmark. But talking about people moving from one EU state to another, do you think that when people move from one EU state to another, should it be the same like when you move from Aalborg to Copenhagen? Like when EU citizens, they do that, should they still do you see EU citizens as immigrants? Or are they just other Europeans who are here?
Ooh, that's also an interesting question. I personally, and I don't mean this in a negative way, not at all, but I personally believe that if you're leaving one country and going to another, even if it's within the European Union, you're migrating, let's say, and that by definition makes you an immigrant. But I wouldn't, the way that the word has been used about immigrants, it's such a negative word nowadays for some reason, and so I wouldn't necessarily say they are immigrants in that fashion, but they're migrating from one country to another. And so I don't think it should be just as easy, let's say, as moving from Aalborg to Copenhagen. I think that there is currently some requirements, there's currently some checkups, and I think that's positive for Denmark as a whole. I would see that so there's actually one thing that's very concerning, and that is if you have, let's say, a wife or a husband in another country and you want to move to Denmark, bring them over, there's a huge process in order to do this, especially if they're not from Europe, by the way. It's impossible. And it just
that depends.
That
depends if you're a Danish citizen or you're a European citizen living in Denmark.
Exactly.
Because if you're a European citizen living in Denmark and you bring your non-European wife, it's very easy. Because it's governed by EU law. That's why many Danish people go to Sweden or Germany. They move there for a bit. They bring their wife to Europe, and then they move back to Denmark.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll go. Yeah, but not in Denmark, right? You have to go to another.
Yes, because you have to.
Yeah.
Because Danish citizens are primarily governed by Danish law on this specific area because Denmark has that opt-out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So when they go to Sweden, they are treated as EU citizens. Therefore, they fall under EU law. And when we come to Denmark, we are not treated by Danish law. We are treated by EU law as well.
Exactly.
So
that's crazy, right? That you have to actually move to another European country in order to do this.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I think it's gone way too far on this kind of policy at the moment in Denmark.
But do you think that the non-Danish EU citizens should have equal opportunities with the locals? Like when you go to Milano yourself, Nicklas, and you want to stay there for a couple of years, 1 year maybe, do you feel like you should have equal opportunities with the Italians there?
Well, when you put it that way, I'd wish. I'd want to, of course. Well, it depends on how you define opportunities. Let's say voting rights, sure. Actually, no. Of course, you should have equal opportunities. Of course.
There's not much to think about, right? There shouldn't be any difference,
actually.
and that's why.
No, I mean, if you're thinking about national elections and you need a citizenship, sure, that makes sense in my opinion. But yeah, in regards to opportunities, of course, they should be equal. I mean, applying for jobs should be on an equal spectrum. Having access to different areas should be on an equal spectrum. I think, yeah. Does it answer the question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to see how far you're willing to understand this European dimension. Because for me personally, I feel like when I'm moving from Milano to Barcelona, from Barcelona to Berlin, and then Paris, and then Copenhagen or Aalborg, for me it's literally the same thing. I don't feel like I'm an immigrant, and I will never see myself as one.
No.
Because then you also have a different attitude to your life in here or there, right? You're not a guest.
True.
You're like simply moving from one part of your own country to another part of your own country, which is Europe.
Yeah.
And with this, we go to part number 4, which is the identity. Talking about feeling European. What makes you feel European? What makes you feel European, Nicklas?
I feel European when I watched, for example, Ursula von der Leyen have a speech as she had. I think European unity can be felt whenever discussing these huge problems and we are standing together. I feel European because I have a little hobby where I play video games. And when I'm playing video games and speaking with internationals, I feel European in that sense because I know we have this project we're doing together. And I feel European personally also. I think it's such a great thing for the world and for the citizens of Denmark.
That's great. Do you think that then, if you're feeling so European, do you think we should raise the EU flag in the Danish parliament, along with the Danish flag during ceremonies and celebrations? Because today, they only put it up on Europe Day, right? So should it be more than that?
It could be more than that. I wouldn't necessarily be against it, to be honest. But I think the way that we're doing it now is very representative of the public opinion, at least from what I'm experiencing. I think people are thinking of the European project as this. It's going to sound a bit crazy, but this society that we're part of, this organization that we're part of, and that we are learning from other people in the European Union. But I also think that, especially a lot of, and including myself, Danish people have a lot of pride actually to the national state. I wouldn't necessarily see a problem on using the European flag every day also. But I think the way having it on Europe Day is more symbolic in a way also. It means that we're showing that we really like this project on Europe Day. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on the area. What do you think, Narcis?
It's in my opinion, I think the EU flag should be used during ceremonies, especially let's say that another head of state is visiting Denmark, right? It should symbolize to, I don't know, let's say India is visiting, to Narendra Modi that look, we are Denmark, but we're also Europe here, you know. So it's a way to market, and also celebration. One thing is ceremonies, yes, but also in celebrations, like for example, when you celebrate 5th of June, you celebrate citizenship, right? You don't celebrate just Danish citizenship. You celebrate democracy and citizenship. Isn't Europe democracy? Shouldn't the EU flag also be there? So in a way, if you think about it, every reason of celebration has some sort of values, EU values or Danish values behind, and that's why I think that it's just a matter of showing that Denmark belongs to Europe. Look at France, right? France has it all the time. The EU flag in the president office is there all the time. Yeah. Whenever anyone visits France in an official capacity, they see the EU flag. It's heavily represented.
Yes, you're right. That's a good example, because then I can also make a distinction, because for the 5th of June, that's the Constitution Day.
Yes,
and that's for the individual constitution in Denmark, and so I think that's more Denmark centered in a way, and so I wouldn't necessarily see the use of the European flag there. However, I do also see that it would be nice to use the European flag when we are having these international meetings. Actually, tomorrow, Ursula von der Leyen will be in Copenhagen. She'll be visiting the Conservative Party, and there it would be great, to use the European flag, say, welcome. And it makes it more clear that we are standing against all these issues around the world together and not alone. And it also is a symbol for the population. So I don't really have an opinion that is very strong on the area, but I agree with you in a sense that it would be nice. It would be nice to use the flag more often.
Fantastic. Nicklas, what do you think about the Conservative Party itself? For example, we tried so hard to get the lead candidate to come and speak to the international voters. Do you feel like the party itself has any sort of intention to get the internationals to vote for Conservative?
Yeah, I believe so. Did our prime candidate cancel, or was he not able to make it, or what's the context?
He never replied.
Okay. Well, maybe I assume that email had got lost or something.
It's fine. I mean, we got you to be here with us, so that's also amazing. So that's not the point. It's like I'm more interested to see if the party itself is willing to get internationals to vote for them.
Certainly. I think the Conservative Party would love to have more internationals voting, especially also for them. And it would be... Yeah, I think the Conservative Party is making a lot of things that are good for internationals also. I don't think we're running any particular campaigns for internationals. I know Radikale Venstre is trying to do that. But I don't see...
Nicklas,
that
you can be the one who can get them to be more open to internationals, both in members, campaigns, targeting. I mean, you can be the one be like, guys, there's like 600,000 people out there which we don't talk to. Don't you think we should talk to the 12% of the population? It's like, it's bound that at least a couple of them are conservative. Believe me, I met internationals who are conservative. More than you are. Way more.
Yep. Certainly. So, I agree. That's a brilliant point, Narcis. And I'll do that. We have a meeting coming up to the elections. I believe it's at the end of May. And there, I'll propose it. I'll say maybe we should have a final campaign during the last days.
At least it's a start, because then you can prepare yourselves for the local elections, where you definitely should go for international votes. Like, it's absolutely weird that you ignore so many local votes in there. I mean, I'm a social democrat, but for me it's important that there is options. That's how a democracy is healthy. If people have options, they shouldn't be forced to vote one party or another. They should have possibility to choose. And I hope we will get that in the future. Nicklas, very last thing, we promised people a challenge. This challenge for you is very simple. You have to tell me 2 stories or beliefs about yourself. One has to be false and one has to be true. And then we have to guess if which one is a true story about you and which one is false.
All right. Well, the first story goes, and this is not necessarily politically related, but the first story is that I have been, for the last many years, been playing Counter-Strike. And I went to an event which was the National Championships of Counter-Strike, and we won it. And we won a lot of money, and there was actually also a little bit of media time on it. And it was a very, very exciting trip. And I remember we were driving back, and we were, one of my friends, this becomes very detailed, maybe this is where he was shedding a little tear, and he said this was what he had always wanted to do with his hobby. That's one story, maybe a bit detailed, but that could also be up to interpretation. And then the second story is that I met Ursula von der Leyen, and we had a very nice discussion at the EPP conference talking about European unity. And we decided that it's very important to focus on the European.
I mean, the first one feels like it was so well developed that it has to be true, right? It feels like you might have had something to do with Counter-Strike and whatnot. So I think the first one is true, and the second one could also be true, to be honest. But let's just go with the first one. Wow. So which team were you part of? Oxygen, or which one was it?
Correct. No. We made our own organization to begin with, and which was just us as friends, 5 friends from the Aalborg University actually, and we were playing this tournament, and we won the study tournament one year, and then we won the study tournament the next year, and we became the champions of that. And then because we had won it twice, they invited us to the national championship. And when we announced that we were going, 3 companies reached out to us actually. So we got sponsored by a company named Ambler, by a company named Prosa, and by a company named RTX. And so we had, I have my t-shirt over here actually, it's, I wish you could see it, but I have my name on the back and the whole team logo, and it was such a crazy experience, really. It was. I love that game. It's a hobby.
I
of
used
mine.
to play Counter-Strike when I was very in high school. I was there was this servers, city servers, and everyone was fighting for frags and what rank you have in the city, and you had like a certain status in the city based on your ranking in the server.
Oh really? That's
That was
fantastic.
something in the old days. But thank you so much, Nicklas, for taking the time to speak with the international community in Denmark. We hope that
course, thank
you and
you.
your party will allocate at least 5% of your campaign resources to target internationals living in Denmark. Remember, there are almost 300,000 non-Danish EU citizens living in Denmark. They can choose to join the electoral roll and vote for a candidate from Denmark at the European Parliament elections in June 2024. In fact, a recent poll conducted by last week in Denmark shows that almost a third are considering to vote for a candidate from Denmark. That means that there's 100,000 potential votes, or 3.6%, which for Konservative, I guess, will make quite a difference. Thank you for listening, everyone. And remember, as an EU citizen, you have the right to either vote in the country of residence or in the country of origin for the European Parliament elections. If you choose to vote in the country of residence, which we strongly encourage, you need to opt in at the Burger service. Stay tuned until the next episode of Vote Home, the podcast serial that wants you to have a choice on 9th of June 2024.